I'm really, there's some other people that know the historic event that occurred here that we're celebrating 75 years ago. I think 55 years ago is when the SEAL teams actually started, but they're obviously intimately connected. So unlike maybe some of the other people that are going to come up here in a minute, I'm never going to write a book. Never met a microphone, a crowd, or a camera that I've liked. But so let me just, what I thought I'd do is just, for me, from the perspective that I have and what I understand is, obviously, the OSS was the the anchor for our community. Certainly, Naval Special Warfare, the SEALs, UDT are connected to them, and there are a lot of other, obviously, Special Operations Command. Many things were kind of focused around this, but it's an interesting event that did happen here 75 years ago in the testing of the underwater breathing apparatus that Lambertson actually designed, named Lambertson Amphibious Respiratory Unit. The thing is, what I remember about that, when I think about it, guys like Tom Hawkins who study this very well and know it, and there's lots of people here that know a lot about it. So I thought I'd reflect on what, fundamentally what I would say today, Naval Special Warfare, despite what we're doing over the last 13, 14, 15 years, combat swimming is the core of us. It's the core of all of us. It's probably why most of us came into the communities, because we like the water, the amphibians, but my sense is that those skill sets and everything you do in combat swimming translates into your success on a battlefield, no matter what you do, because the environment is so difficult and it's so tough. And we all spend a lot of time underwater, whether it's in STVs, and the STVs actually kind of grew out of what Christian Lambertson actually started with. They were doing submersible canoes, and that connected to his underwater breathing apparatus. And I mean, everybody in here who is a SEAL remembers the underwater breathing apparatus. My memories of it, number one, is caustic cocktails. Number two, you got a dive buddy who didn't put his rig, he floods his rig and didn't get together right, so you get jumped on if you come out of the water. We never forget that. As it was originally designed, the underwater breathing apparatus that he had was that Lambertson actually designed was 50 feet for 90 minutes. Well, 50 feet for 90 minutes, that's a warm-up these days. So unfortunately, what he created and what it extended to is multiple hours underwater, and obviously underwater, and we don't go to places like they went and tested. They did a lot of testing in the Bahamas. They went to Cuba. They went to Catalina Island. We don't, if it doesn't suck, we don't do it, so to speak. So it's cold, it's wet, it's long. Same thing with STV. It translated into STVs. And it's interesting, he developed the same tactics that we use in STVs now. A lot of it is bottoming out the STV, going on the underwater breathing apparatus, and going to a target. But the key to that was the bubbles. I mean, the whole premise of what he designed was about no bubbles. And they demonstrated that at what I would call a full mission profile down in Cuba, where they actually penetrated the harbor and no one could detect them at all. And so that was the light came on. Gee, if we can approach from, probably I would consider our nation's most protective clandestine environment is still the sea. If we can approach without doing, without bubbles, then you can do a lot of things. And there's a multitude of missions over the course of World War II that transpired that were really based on what he did. And it really, there was a lot of it. That actually, his underwater breathing apparatus, when there was a Lieutenant Commander Fain who actually, after the World War II, they were going to actually disband completely the underwater demolition teams, which of course, as we all know, underwater demolition teams kind of grew out into SEAL teams. And so he actually got, a hold of Christian, brought him in and said, listen, we don't want the UDT to disappear. So the demonstration of this underwater breathing apparatus and its utility for covert maritime operations or clandestine operations in the maritime environment was really the impetus behind preserving UDT after World War II, and then it continued on, and out of that became, obviously we got the SEAL teams, and we are where we are today. So I would say fundamentally he is the father of frogmen. And his development, Christian's development of this underwater breathing, and he's the father in my mind of frogmen that eventually turned into SEALs, because as I started with, the things that you learn and what you do underwater is incredibly difficult, is incredibly challenging. And again, if you have that fortitude, if you have that attention to detail, and you live and breathe in an unforgiving environment like the water, you can thrive in any environment. And I still believe that that's the core of our success today and over the years as SEALs. It doesn't matter. We transition amphibians. We transition ashore, and we've been obviously pretty darn successful over the years. So this is great. Again, this is a really important event. to celebrate and to never forget this event, because it truly was the beginning of frogmen. It was the beginning of seals, and there are lots of history that someone else will talk about. But so thanks to the OSS Society for actually remembering an important day. Most people didn't know about it. Candidly, I didn't know about the swimming pool, and this is where it was tested. This is where actually the British and the OSS came and watched it and said, gee, that's pretty amazing if you can swim underwater and you're not making bubbles, and then the rest of it is history. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity to come up here, and again, thanks to the OSS Society for recognizing a really, really important a day in our history. Thank you.